Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to Knife AQ number 76. It's the knife series where I answer all of your questions, or at least some of them, whether they're sharp or dull. This week, we're talking about a few things, including knives that combine lightweight with high strength. We're talking about some of the best steels to use for life, and we're going to talk about rubbers. Let's get into it. All right, folks, if you've never seen one of these episodes before, here's what we do. Your task or your assignment, if you're interested in doing more than just watching this video and you have a question of your own, is to leave it in the comments section below this video. And then we go through and we pick out a few for inclusion in the next episode. So that's what you got to do if you want a chance to have your question featured. This week, first question is from Kevin Coughlin. He says, best kitchen knife for cutting meat as far as edge retention? A friend is processing a lot of meat to make homemade smoked jerky, and he's complaining about his knife edge not holding up. Also says the handles are very uncomfortable after cutting the meat for a few hours. Sorry, I don't know what he is using, but anything I could recommend would be appreciated. Sure thing. So over the course of a couple hours, even if you're dealing with some super steels, you might have to do a little bit of edge touch-up in the process, and it might be as simple as just a little bit of stropping every once in a while. You'll probably need that with this particular knife here, but what I would suggest is, because unfortunately there's not a lot of like super high-end like powder metal steels in the kitchen knife world. There's some, but not a lot at all. But I like this as a suggestion. Go with a butcher knife like this. This is the KnifeCenter F3Z butcher knife. Doesn't have a super steel, but you do have a VG10 core. So the edge right there is very high performance and very easy to strop as you go. And it's gonna last worlds longer than any kind of basic German chef's knife, which uses like, oh gosh, I can never remember like the number and letter designation for a lot of the simple stainless steels that are used on kitchen knives, but this is going to be worlds better than that. And a nice little shape for breaking down meats and cutting things into strips. The handles are decently comfortable. I mean, you've got a soft rubberized overmold over the full tang right here, and they grip really nicely even when things are wet. If you're dealing with a lot of animal protein, that's going to come in handy. And you just got a nice slicey little blade. Really cool convex geometry, really cool shape as well. And should have a good long lasting edge to boot. About $150 for these. Comes with a sheath if you want to use this as a dedicated hunting knife. It would actually work really well at that sort of thing. This is not just restricted to a kitchen knife. On that note, maybe look at some larger hunting knife patterns out there as an option. One that I really like for this kind of task might be something like this, the Tops Camp Creek. You guys know I love a Nessmuck. This is, Nessmuck's just a big slicey hunting shape. About $188 for this guy, made in the USA, S35 VN steel. So you do have some powder metallurgy right here. Tops actually does have a kitchen series with S35 VN as well. They aren't available all the time, so keep an eye out, but maybe the big chef knife in there would work the best in the lineup for this particular task, thanks to the amount of belly on it. But you've got a lot of edge retention with something like this, and got a lot more options when you open it up to kind of larger hunting knives, as opposed to just the kitchen stuff out there. But yeah, maybe send your friend, see what he thinks about that KnifeCenter butcher knife before moving forward. I think this is a very underrated knife pattern out there. Be very, very useful for this sort of thing.
At the very least, I'll have a backup knife.
I mean, that could be your primary knife right there. Then you back up with whatever is not working too well for you right now. I dig that knife. I like it a lot. All right. Vera X Knives asks the next question. If you had to pick one steel and handle material for lifetime use and you couldn't use anything else, what would those be? Regardless of cutting task, geometry, etc. So the popular answer right now would probably be something with MagnaCut steel due to its ability to do a wide variety of things really well. But I want to be a little bit different, and I would honestly be very happy with aeb-l. Not a lot of production knives are made with aeb-l these days. In fact, this isn't a production knife. This is a custom, I don't remember the name, a Spitfire from Dragonfly Blade Works. Really cool looking knife with aeb-l steel. If you're familiar, folks out there, with Sandvik's 13C26, that was a copy of aeb-l. I really like this stuff. It's one of my favorite steels, bar none, because it can do so many different things. I love the toughness that it has. I love its utility on small knives like this, where you might want to have a very acute edge. It's going to hold up really well. And it's going to work really well on larger, heavier duty, choppier things too. I mean, I've seen some aeb-l, thicker aeb-l machetes absolutely thrashed and come through with flying colors. Hones easily, doesn't hold an edge as well as a lot of the super steels out there, but I've always been happy with it. And it's very easy to maintain. I mean, maybe one of the only negatives for it might be the edge retention for some folks out there, but again, I've always had really good results with it. It's not the most stainless steel in the world, but again, I've never had a problem there either. Love that stuff. As for handle material, this was a little harder, honestly, but I'm probably gonna go with a micarta as an option. Or as my option, because again, you can do so many different things with it. Works well on bigger knives with a matte finish, smaller, fancier knives, you can polish it up really well. Probably have to go with, see, I'm not sure. Canvas is great, burlap's great, but I'd probably wind up going with linen micarta as my one handle material. You can make it look fancy, you can make it look rugged, you can make it look kind of classic and old school, as well as nice and modern too. Yeah, I'm gonna go with that.
Okay.
Thomas?
S35 and titanium.
For everything?
Yeah, if I had to.
All right. What about you folks out there? Let me know as well. And Vera X, thank you for your question. Next one, Dr. Bob says, I hope you can help me. I'm looking for the thinnest, strongest, lightest EDC folder on the market. Perhaps the Benchmade Arcane, but your suggestions will carry great weight. Thank you. Keep up the good work. Thank you, sir. All right. Well, let's take a look at that Arcane here as an example, since you used it. Another cool knife right here. About 243 bucks. Aluminum handles, no backspacer or standoffs. It's two pieces screwed together. Assisted opening with the axis lock, which is nice and strong. S90V blade steel, really cool high-end material there. 2.88 ounces. Quite lightweight for the amount of blade you're getting here. I like it. It's nice and slicey. The action. This is one of the things where they used the utility of the assisted opening mechanism to make the flipper tab smaller, since you don't have to push it as hard. They give you just enough to open that blade. So that's cool. Fairly deep carry clip. Secondary safety, which is going to lock that axis lock bar into place, whether opened or closed. Really nice. Really good thing to start off with. And since you gave that as a suggestion, I'm going to kind of riff on that a little bit. When we're talking thinnest, lightest knives, it's almost obligatory. We have to mention the Benchmade bug out because that's what it does so well. But especially the Grivery versions, a lot of people don't like, or there's a faction of people out there that don't like the feeling of those scales. They feel too light in a way, and they can, they have a little bit of flex to them, and they're not super stable. Not as super stable as something like aluminum. So the base models wouldn't really fit the bill. They do have an aluminum version of this out now with an M390 blade for about $248, so about the same really as the Arcane there. I mean, actually a couple bucks more than the Arcane, I had to remember. Still a great option, but I like the track you're on. Aluminum is going to be plenty stable here. The axis lock bar is very strong, but none of the blade materials here, the S90V or the M390, are particularly tough. So that blade itself can actually come into the strength category. So I want to take a look at the bailout, the aluminum handled versions of this. Price on this guy, $234. Weight on this guy, 2.7 ounces. So it's even lighter than the Arcane with roughly the same amount of sharpened edge, actually a tiny bit more if you count it linearly, but same blade length, we'll say. Even slimmer, very comfortable with the aluminum handles right there. and M4 blade steel. Very tough stuff. So they can get away with having a very thin, slicey blade like this without feeling, without worrying as much about it like snapping, that sort of thing. So I'm a big fan of this knife. I own one personally and have carried it quite a bit. For a thin, sturdy feeling knife, great option. Not gonna weigh you down. However, if you hadn't mentioned the Arcane as kind of the starting point, my mind was going a slightly different direction, maybe slightly less fancy than some of these knives that we're talking about here. So I'll take you down that rabbit hole as well, or that fork in the road, shall we say. You have three attributes here: thinnest, strongest, lightest. You got to spread your stats around somewhere. So the way these things are kind of diametrically opposed to each other, or three things would be like triametrically opposed. We're not scientists.
Or geometrists.
Or geometrists. Well, you've got your three things, and it's almost like you want something cheap, quickly, and good. You can usually pick two, right? This is kind of the same thing. Or Thomas has his, it's with your project car analogy, right?
Cheap, fast, and reliable. Pick two.
Pick two, exactly. We're still going to get some of the lightweight, but in my mind, I'm kind of ranking these in the order you wrote them. We're going to go with thinnest first, strongest as second priority, and lightest as third. Still a consideration, but not as important as the other two. And the way we can get a thin knife while also getting strength, rather than focusing on a thinner blade, I was thinking something like this, the Demco AD 20.5. Those handles are not thick. This is a thin knife, but you still have a fairly thick blade here. I mean, we're dealing, what is it, close to 1/8 of an inch? I don't remember my spec here off the top of my head. Pardon me. Yeah, exactly, 0.125 inches. That's 1/8 of an inch. My eyeball calibers have been calibrated lately. Sturdy blade, even though it's D2 here, which is not the particularly toughest steel out there, but you've got plenty of durability with this particular geometry going on. And you have a very strong lock with Demco's Shark Lock right here too. About 150 bucks for these. You can fidget with them really nicely, and like I said, they carry really compactly. They're a little bit heavier than the other knives we were looking at. We're at about 3.5 ounces with this. So it's not a featherweight. It's not heavy either, but compared to the other three we've held, just in the hands, you're gonna notice it, but clipped into a pants pocket, not so much. If you're wearing like a pair of jeans or something, you won't notice it. If you're wearing like dressier clothes, like slacks, that sort of thing, maybe that's why you were looking at something like the Arcane, had to kind of fit the attire a little bit better, in which case this is probably not the direction you want to go. But really good option, I think, for a thin, strong knife that's not too heavy. Some other more affordable options, check out the Cold Steel Airlight. Drop point or Tanto blades, about 80 bucks for these. So not crazy cheap, but much less expensive. 3.2 ounces on these guys. You've got a blade length of about 3.5 inches with AUS 10 steel. And another Andrew Demco thing here, the Triad lock here at the back. So you've got a slightly thicker blade, you've got a strong locking mechanism going for the strength there, and again, a very thin carrying knife. Slim G10 handles, a lot of capability in a thin overall package. Another option, just because I'm feeling fancy today, kind of splits the difference a little bit between the more rugged and the fancier stuff. Check out the Cold Steel Code 4. We're about 107 for these right now with an S35 VN blade, thin aluminum handles, and that Triad lock. A little bit of a bigger knife than some we've looked at so far, but the weight, 4.3 ounces, creeping up a little bit. But because of the size, I expect it to be heavier in a way. It feels like one of the lighter knives on the table in a way. A lot of capability there, not a lot of space thickness-wise in your pocket. I mean, it is going to take up a little bit more width-wise overall than any of the other knives, the folders that we've looked at so far, but check those guys out and let me know what you guys think. And folks in the comments, let me know how you would kind of rank these things together. Again, it's an interesting one. Thinnest, strongest, lightest EDC folders. Throw me your suggestions in the comments, please. Next question. Stay Woke asks, hey DCA, What is a good one-handed open-close fidget knife other than an axis, compression, or button lock folder? Please keep it between $50 and $400 if possible. So anything, basically. Also, it's SOG, not SOG. Well, you took away like the best fidgetiest ones. So you didn't mention the shark lock though. These things are great for playing with. You've got kind of the same thing I love about an axis lock or a crossbar lock in that you can flick it open and closed. You can keep your fingers out of the blade path when you're operating it. Very fun. You've got extra opening options here with thumb studs and a blade cutout. So you can do flicky things with those. You can, sling, do around. Lots of fun stuff there. And of course you could check out something like the Manix 2 from Spyderco with its ball bearing lock, which I feel like I'm cheating a little bit since it's so similar in how you operate it to a crossbar lock, even though mechanically they're different. You can do some of that same stuff. KnifeCenter exclusive here in Crewwear, by the way, if we still have any in stock by this time.
Did they rule out any double action OTFs?
They did not, but in a way I would argue that a double action OTF is not nearly as fidgety as any of those lock types or the shark lock. Because you can do two things with it. Open, close, open, close. Yeah, and that's a lot of fun, but your options are much more limited.
I mean, I'm not going to get bored.
You might. We might force you into boredom because we're tired of you clicking open the thing over and over at your desk over there.
It didn't say Bally Song either.
I mean, that's a fidget knife. I don't think that's what he meant. That's outside the spirit of the question, I would think. But yeah.
That's what I'm going with.
How about a Bally? That works. I like it. All right, coming to the lightning round. Knife Guy 2112. Can you help me understand why deep carry pocket clips are so important for a knife these days? I understand that in some urban areas, a visibly pocketed knife can be an issue. That said, even if the knife is totally hidden, you can still see the clip. So won't the side of the clip give away the knife? Full disclosure, I live in a more rural area, so am I just missing something? No, I don't think you're missing something. It's just one of the more prominent trends right now. In fact, I'm missing an example of something I wish I had here. Uh-oh, what's Thomas doing? This is supposed to be, well, I have a bug out on the table, Thomas. A lot of people like it because it is more subtle. And even if someone sees a clip there, a lot of times, unless you're a knife guy, you might not realize it's a knife. And even if you do, there's just something a little more surreptitious about just seeing a bit of clip than seeing something with more handle sticking up. There's uses to both. Discretion is good. If it's a more tactical knife like this Airlight, you might want to have more handle sticking out so you can grab it better. It's just something that's popular right now. What I was saying, an example I wish I had is there's some knives now that with a deep carry clip that is super narrow, it almost looks like an ink pen or a pen in your pocket, in which case it's really going to blend in. This one's not deep carry, but stuff like the wire pocket clip right there is very subtle as well. It's just one less thing to raise eyebrows. May or may not matter to you. To each their own out there. All right, Richard Bender asks, can you recommend some fixed blade knives that have soft rubber grips? Well, not without knowing what kind of uses you're after. There's a bunch of great stuff out there. The Feldknieven lineup, great. You folks know I'm a big fan of Cold Steel's SRK series. Those are really nice. So many Moras. K-Bar, version of their USMC fighter right here with D2 blade and rubber handles. Kraton. I think these are Kraton. Lots of good stuff out there. So we got combat, survival, hunting, bushcraft. What you looking for? But there's a lot of good stuff out there. Check out some of those brands and they'll get you on a good track. Herbie Husker says, get that out of the way, please shed some light on the correct way to engage the axis or aeb-l lock or any crossbar lock. Specifically, when you slide the lever back, are you supposed to pull on both sides of the handle simultaneously with your thumb and index finger like I did there? I've heard that pulling on only one side will shorten the lifespan of the spring mechanism. Is that fact or fiction? I mean, instinctually, I always tend to use both fingers, just because it's really natural. I mean, I suppose, doing it both-handed or with both fingers puts equal pressure on both springs and therefore keeps things more even. I don't know. I've heard this thing before too. I'm not entirely convinced using it with just one finger is going to make a significant difference. There might be, academically a difference in the amount of stress you're putting on one spring as opposed to spreading it out more evenly over two. But I think practically, it's not something I would personally worry about. I've done it occasionally like that with a thumb just because, I don't know, some quirk of how I'm gripping the knife at that particular moment made that make sense, but I wouldn't worry about it. I wouldn't concern myself with it anyway. If you want to concern yourself with it, go right ahead, but for me personally, I'm not worried. All right, Ian's Clone asks us our most serious question of the day. Hey DCA and gang, this series' opening theme has always tickled me, and after your Monty Python explanation, I now know why. Pivoting to the most serious question, what companion knife would Arthur, King of the Britons, carry as a backup for the sword an ornery moistened tart lobbed at him from a lake, designating him as the wielder of supreme executive power? Right, listen, strange women lying in ponds distributing swords is no basis for a system of government. That said, wouldn't it have to be the Boker Excalibur right here? I mean, with a name like that. Also, with this kind of shape, that kind of spear or drop point shape there on the simpler classic side, almost looks like it could be a medieval table knife, don't you think?
Come see the knives inherent in the system.
There you go. All right, that is all we've got for today. Remember, if you want a chance to have your question featured in a future episode, just leave them in the comments section below. If you want to get your hands on any of these knives, there will be links in the description that'll take you over to the KnifeCenter. And make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program while you're there, because if you're going to spend your money on one of these knives, you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next one. I'm David C. Anderson from the KnifeCenter. That's Thomas over there. See you next time.